interaction with ICASA. We have done that and communicated on that. And perhaps to kickstart the responses with both the question that you ask and Honorable Tambo asked about whether there's an element of creativity around the use of alignment and amendment and the perceived mischief. We're trying to address in here a gap. There is a gap in the fact that the regulations, the ownership regulations in particular, as they are framed, speak to one aspect of empowerment, which is only around equity of ownership. And I think it was another honorable member which made the key point around that section 43K, which speaks around the or such other conditions. In fact, it was Honorable Shongwe, although he used it in a different context, to claim incorrectly so that it is opening the gap for some nefarious forces to enter into play. It is not. I think the committee, of course, individual members are entitled to say they do not prefer this option that, you know, the minister is exercising through the policy directive, but it is made for within the instruments of the very same law that we are trying to answer this question. And Chair, I take the point you made that there is no deviation from broad-based Black economic empowerment. There is no departure from that. At the very basic root of this question is that while there is the application of 2 points of entry with regards to doing business in South Africa for multinationals, one being the 30% ownership element and the path of the equity equivalent programs, when you go and look into the regulations, it closes that gap because it looks at one avenue. And we say the opening up that we are referring to is that consider those options to be consistently available for any prospective potential investor that then wants to get into the market. There is a process that unfolds beyond that, which is the actual process of an individual application. And every applicant would then have to satisfy the regulator in this regard about the specific nature of how they seek to abide by the licensing conditions that exist after being given permission to do business here in South Africa. And there was I think I'll go to Honorable Stolle in terms of this also notion that you are acting in isolation and you are acting alone. And that is why, at the very beginning, I referenced the fact that the MTDP, which is the framework of this administration for the 5-year period, which has been adopted by government over a series of engagements, and some of them played themselves out in the public domain, accepted and adopted the full introduction of equity equivalence in the ICT sector as one of the targets to pursue during this period. Taking that into consideration, right, and I want to assure colleagues that the process that kick-started in September last assumes a position of responsibility. You study the landscape, you identify where you think that there are areas that require either clarity, intervention, review, and measure the instrument with which to use. And that is why we engage on this process. And the stage of this process where it is now, it's not definitive. It's not definitive because it must also take into consideration what all the inputs that are going to be submitted are going to be. And I'm looking actually forward to engaging with the substance of those inputs. Honorable Stolle, I think you were speaking about two different issues when you spoke about the process that ICASA, undertook in terms of the inquiry that took place. And if time allows, I would ask the ICASA chair to deal specifically with that so that we are able to release the intertwining of those two issues, because that process unfolded in its own way, and they are able to then answer that. Honorable Ndlela speaks about the discovery that Sterling is operating in the country illegally. Any company that operates in the country through other backward channels, illegal ways, I think the laws of it must be a must that the laws of the country must be upheld. It must be. regardless whether they are Malazi satellites or Ndlela satellites or whoever, there must be. And I think the question that you're asking is they are operating under our nose. Personally, I didn't know about that discovery that we have made. And in all fairness, I think we'll engage with the regulator to be able to set the right course of action going forward. And then there was, there's a lot. Yeah, the other sentiment in here, which I don't want to spend a lot of time around. Of course, there is a lot of audience exhibitioning that is taking place. And that seems to say that you've got a minister who belongs to the Democratic Alliance, who somewhere has a conspiracy to make special dispensation for any interested businesses to operate in our country. Nothing could be further from the truth. And someone asked, am I being bullied? No, I'm not being bullied. I don't take kindly to bullies. And I would not allow myself to be bullied. And then we'll move to the Honorable Makhubele. The Honorable Makhubele had 4 questions. Why should we keep you? Unfortunately, being kept in here is beyond your control. And I'm not being rude, because ministers serve at the pleasure of the president through the formation of the government of national unity. And when are you reversing the Gazette? I think it's important to give the stage of the public comments the rightful place that it enjoys in the process, and let be guided by what these public submissions are saying to that. Who pressured you? Nobody pressured me, as I said. And I underscore that point because the events that predated this week are important to take into consideration if we're going to deal fairly and substantively with the issue at play. What I do pick up, though, which is a genuine concern of the members of the committee and some of the sentiment of the public, it is saying, why that week, right? And I make the point that depending on what conclusion you want to get to, you'll get any argument that suits that. I made the point earlier that when we communicated on the policy directive, the timeline we were aiming and working with was to finalize the policy direction process by mid-June. We are now in May, and we've gazetted that in the 3rd week of May to allow that process to go through. And I appreciate the fact that some members may view that development and conclude whatever they want to conclude. But it is the following of a due process that has been taking place for some time. Honorable Makhubele, I believe that I'm capable of doing this job. I'm not contemplating any attempt whatsoever to resign. And just for clarity, I don't take the comments made by Honorable Shongwe to be an ad hominem attack whatsoever. And I think I'm advantaged by the fact that we have had prior engagements. In fact, this is the least heated engagement we've had with the portfolio, given how other meetings have gone by. I think there is a passion and there is a deep-rooted concern about 2 things, which also link to what the chairperson said. Regulation parity, same rules for the same players, right? And when we say that if you consider that you would then have the option of the path of the equity equivalence or sticking to pursuing the 30% ownership, that choice lies upon whoever wants to enter the market. It is a choice that is embedded. It is embedded in the legislation. And it was enacted, colleagues, by the founder of one party in this house that Honorable Shong and Honorable Makhubele represents. So we're not trying to act outside the prescripts of what the law of empowerment says. And there's also this attempt to say, does this have government buy-in? B is a policy of government. It is there. And we're trying to give life to the full spirit of that, so that we don't face an instance where, due to different interpretations, due to different lobbying on considerations, we think that there is a gap, and that gap can be sustained, because one of the key elements of having, and the committee has been passionate about this around the issue of policy certainty, is asking all the duality that exists in the interpretation of the policy. I think it was either Honorable Mkhaga, but also two other colleagues prior to you mentioned in terms of the question that infers that is one undermining ICASA. No, none at all. And that's why the process says, and the regulator can confirm in this, and Chair, it also touches your point in terms of the phrasing and the directive. And the use of the direct is, you could say the language could be better, but it is founded upon which section makes provision for policy directive to be issued. In the end, when the submissions from the public are being considered, they will influence the final formulation of that policy. And then it will state, right, and I try not to get into the permutations, because the risk of getting into the permutations may give the incorrect impression that there is a foregone conclusion to an ongoing process. And there isn't a foregone conclusion to an ongoing process, because it reconciles with the point that some members consistently say that why not do, and I think it was Honorable Tambo, and apologies if I'm incorrectly associating you with an idea that wasn't yours, why not amend the ECA? Because it will then deal with these issues of mandate overstep and all of that. And I'm saying, colleagues, I am not stuck to what the draft policy is articulating in terms of what it seeks to achieve, because I do not know what the submissions will be, because there are going to be submissions that may encapsulate some of the views that have been expressed here, some of which have been expressed in the media, and those will then be additional. But what I do know, which we've got a constitutional responsibility to do, is that we must consider those comments, and those comments must be considered properly in informing the final policy direction. And then ultimately, which is why I think there is a fear that in the final formulation of the policy somehow, you would have indirectly placed undue pressure on the regulator to take a particular position on this matter. It is actually the elephant in the room that is not being asked, and I'm doing that deliberately to say that is not the case, because the regulator has a responsibility to ensure that it does its job regardless of the size of the noise or what is being codified as an expression. I make the point, which I think Honorable Subrathi or Honorable Matafa was warning against, to say that, I can't say that the authority can't stop the minister. The point I was making and clarifying in that is that in terms of the process, the authority can express its view, and you have to interrogate that view and be satisfied that does it sufficiently ask the questions one is seeking to resolve with the draft policy or not. And I'm properly empowered to make a determination as to it does that adequately or not. And when I believe that isn't the case, we go to the stage of gazetting, and then we go to the stage of considering the public comment. I've got trust in the public participation process to be able, to express the sentiment of both parliamentarians, both parties, both players in the sector, and the public. We are a representative democracy here, and that input has to be taken into consideration. And I would say to colleagues, whether you believe that the step of the policy direction would be one that you would have preferred or you would have taken, there is a public process that is going to unfold to that. Let that process also take its course, and let us measure what the input says in there. Somebody spoke about the risk of litigation. In the interest of openness, and I'm never one to duck and dive questions, it is possible, because any other party that has a divergent view on a policy initiative can feel that the true test of that would be a litigation. But I also believe that the ultimate test of leadership is also being able to lead in a manner that considered all of the options that are at place, and making decisions having considered all of that. And I believe that this avenue of the policy directive is legally sound in its substance and its process. And that I further believe that the final submission of the comments will be considered, as they should, in determining the final policy, direction, and most importantly, the shape and the manner in which it looks. Chair, the last point, and I hope this does not degenerate the conversation, but I think it's important because there are some dots being connected. I can't dissociate myself from the fact that the leader of my party was part of the delegation to the US. And I'm a proud member of my party. I'm not apologetic about that. And I belong to a party that is part of this administration. And this administration, through the president and the other members that were in that delegation, have consistently said there was no discussion whatsoever about Starlink. There wasn't. Some of you have shared this sentiment in there. So as to why you would want to implicate me into conversations I wasn't part of in order to shape a narrative of bullying, I don't know what that seeks to achieve, because each and every opportunity, that idea has been squashed by facts. And that's what must lead our conversations, Chair. And that's what I've got a very long appetite for in terms of the engagement. I know that the portfolio committee would, as it should, at any given time where they feel that the minister needs to take us into confidence. Whether we ultimately agree or not is not important. What is important is that the committee wants to have a sense that they've been taken into confidence about what is happening in their space, and that it's fulfilling its responsibility of oversight, and that we account. Whether it is at short notice or what, we must do that. Because it is important that when conversations of this nature, and I appreciate the fact that this is not just, the nature of this conversation is a matter of national importance. And that is why we also have a full complement of attendance from the portfolio committee, right? Because it speaks to that importance of the issue. And those conversations must be had. And as uncomfortable as it may seem to others, we'll always come here and account fully and take responsibility for the actions and the initiatives that we initiated, because we believe they are sound. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Minister. There's a lot of stuff, Honorable Members. You don't have to raise it. I've noted everything everybody has said. There's a lot of stuff that's not answered. But Minister, I'm going to press you on one thing, because you underscored it and you said it was important. I think it was Honorable Mkhaha who asked you, did you consult ICASA? And if so, what did ICASA say? Because as you've said, that is the big issue, because we're also worried about the influence that you are seeking to exert on ICASA. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. When we engaged with ICASA, there are written submission to us, which I'm sure at the dictates of the process, it will be shared. Their conclusion was they prefer the option of an amendment of the ECA, and did not rule out that the minister can pursue the angle of the policy directive. They expressed what they would prefer. Thank you.
Okay, honorable members, I think we must wrap this issue up. As always, you are free to write to the minister. Minister, please respond to our letters. You are free to write to the minister if there's issues that you want to take up, if this matter must come back again. Minister, I want to underscore one thing to you. This portfolio committee has been kicking, screaming, saying to you, the legislation is outdated, the policy environment is outdated, the regulations are outdated. You've come to us with a 5-year plan that in the first year does not even look at amending legislation. You're going to be planning to do this. We would not have this problem. What you were supposed to do was to update and bring the ECA, amend it in Parliament. You were supposed to do a policy and regulatory environment overhaul. And I'm saying that now we are chasing our tails, running around. And we were promised that by the end of May, today is the 28th, I asked in the House, when are we getting the audio and audiovisual policy? The DG sat there straight face, she said end of May. You are going to circumvent, cut corners now because you don't have a policy, and then we're going to have to sit here again. And I think that those are really part of the challenges that you're facing. I'm not going to rule from the chair that members are saying withdraw, others are saying give it the 30 days, others are saying 90 days. Yeah, you didn't put a date, Honorable Makubela, on resignation. I'm not going to rule on those things. I think all of us were expressing our opinions. I do think that where there are areas where there are legal disagreements, which I think are at the core of this, with the principle in particular, the fact that you cannot use regulations to amend a law or to align to any law. And unfortunately, we didn't get a substantive answer to that question. But be that as it may, we do thank you. And I'm sure I'm not going to give ICASA an opportunity to speak. They, like other members of the public, may make their comments. I would just be very keen to find out what would happen if ICASA continues to express their view that they do not agree with you and have a preference of the other route. Members, I'm closing this matter. And I want to apologize to FPB, and then I want to give 2 minutes to the SABC to answer whether they have paid Sentech, and to Sentech 2 minutes to confirm that the SABC has paid them, because I think the second issue on the agenda was that. On the FPB, we are going to schedule a virtual meeting so that you don't have to travel again. And we truly, truly apologize for that. Chairperson of SABC, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and honorable members, Minister, and colleagues on the platform. So I would assume, Chair, that the question is relating to the reclassified funds. Or
sorry, there's an outstanding debt of 1 billion rand. Then you got 150 million in environment that was meant to go towards the debt, as we understand it. So if we could just get an update on that as quickly as you can. Thank you.
Okay, so in short, Chair, we did not have that understanding. Our understanding was that reclassification was to assist us to continue to pay Sentech, and I can confirm that we have spent that money towards the bill of Sentech. Thanks.
CEO, do you want to add in terms of where the status of the bill is currently, the debt to SABC, I mean?
Good afternoon to you, Chair, the Minister, all the honourable members present, and my colleagues. Just to augment what the Chair was saying, SABC in the financial year under review increased its payments to Sentech from 20 million rand excluding VAT for the financial year ended 24 to actually double to 40 million rand. And in March, the basis of that was that we had various engagements with the department and with the then Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, where there was an agreement that the department, if you recall, Chair, it was just before the national elections, and it was important for us to ensure that the services were not disrupted in any form. The money was increased from 20 to 40 million rand with a proviso, and the letter states that the department would assist the SABC with the increased payment. And that's based on the new master tariff agreement that came into effect in March of that year. However, it was very clear to all of us that in order for us to even maintain that payment as the second part, so the first part is that the department would assist with the payment, and the second part was that the department would assist in approaching National Treasury to get the environment. The department assisted only in March of 2024 with the shortfall. As of April, SABC has been paying the increase, the double payment by itself. The environment came only towards, I think it was October of last year. The full amount of that environment was paid to Sentech for November, December, January, in fact. So it's critical when we have this to have the context that SABC for the year ending 25 increased their payments to Sentech above 300 million in comparison to the previous year. Throughout this period, we made it very clear that the increase was really straining us financially, because literally what we do, we pay Sentech first before we pay any of our service providers, meaning that producers, etc., actually come after the Sentech payment. We've maintained that payment despite a very, very challenging trading period. So the belief that SABC did not pay Sentech is actually not, is void, unless perhaps there was a misunderstanding whereby Sentech was under the impression that the increase of the the environment would actually mean that SABC would fully pay the invoice. But that was not the case, Chair. And it's also important that we have been given our quarterly performance to the department. So the department is very much aware of our cash flow position and the payments we've been making for the past year. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, CEO. Resist the temptation to be like the members. CEO, congratulations, CEO. Congratulations on your appointment, Mr. Lishope. Over to you.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I think, yeah, just maybe to be clear, there is a departure of understanding in terms of what the environment was intended for, as per our discussion and records with the SABC in April last year, Chairperson. So we do have a transmission agreement with the SABC where the current agreement is being short paid by approximately 15 million rand. When we agreed with the SABC in April last year, it was on the condition that there will be a top-up on the 51 million that the SABC is currently paying when the environment is received, Chairperson. And this is not the case. The SABC has not topped up. We had a meeting with the SABC Executive, Sentech Executive Committee and the SABC Executive Committee on the 7th. Precisely to raise the concerns and request the SABC to actually pay the environment in accordance with the initial intention, Chairperson. Because this matter is affecting and risking sustainability of Sentech in a negative manner that eventually, if not treated by the SABC, will affect the SABC, Chairperson. It is still our plea that the SABC revert back to the initial terms and conditions of the agreement at that time. So the SABC, yes, has stepped up its payment from previously about 20 million rand, which we acknowledge as the organization. You would have heard me here in Parliament actually appreciating that increase in payment. However, where we are, the SABC is still short paying Sentech by 15 million rand, Chairperson. It is a risk, it is a sustainability risk, and it is a matter that we brought to the attention of the SABC. We do have feedback in writing from the SABC Chairperson that they are sitting in a board meeting on the 29th. We are expecting that the SABC will write to us after that board meeting on the basis of the concerns and the requests and the issues that we raised directly with the SABC in our meeting of the 7th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, can I suggest then how we're going to handle this issue? We will schedule the Minister in his next appearance to provide us with an update, because the last time we spoke about this, you were going to mediate. So we've never received a mediation. We've run out of time, and you are going to, okay, you have 1 minute, but we still need a report on the mediation. Minister?
Thanks very much, Chair. I thought because you've opened the door, then we must take it. There's been an element of frustration on the part of the department with the mediation efforts because it's taken long to get both parties to agree first in the beginning to the terms of reference for that mediation. Ultimately, we got over that stage. And the difficulty then became in, the procurement of the services that we need to lead that mediation, because they have to have an understanding of both the challenges that Sentech faces and the reality of the SABC. And I make this point as what has contributed to the delay in kicking off the mediation process. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. You said to Honorable Makubele, she has no say in you being a minister. In the same way that you have no say in the fact that you must resolve the problem. So we would really wish to get a report, and I think that will then afford members an opportunity to engage with the issue. Honorable Bodlani said, time management. We must manage our meetings better. Please indulge me, Honorable Vilakazi.
Thank you, Chair. It's really to echo the point that you are making now. A frustration for me in reading the presentation that was presented to us by the department is I see that the department basically throws SABC under the bus and says they are not serving
Going to
the
stop
debt.
you, Honorable
No, hang on,
Vilakazi.
hang on.
You are discussing.
No. I want to say, for me, the frustration, as we receive the report from the minister, let the department take responsibility for the fact that these are its entities, and both of them need each other to survive. So the department can't adopt a stance, we favor this one and the other child is truant. It must, as you just said to the minister, it's his responsibility and the department's responsibility not to just say, hey, I don't know, leave it. The department must come to us with a plan for how it intends to see both these entities have a going concern status that is improved to what currently exists.
Thank you, Honorable Vilakazi. Honorable members, I'm going to bring the meeting to a close, maybe with one announcement. The subcommittee on the vacancies at MDDA is going to sit. Mr. Ngoma will just communicate in a short meeting where we are going to discuss and adopt the program for the filling of the vacancies. So I'm sure it's going to be a virtual meeting during the course of the week or still. If there's no other business, let me once again thank the minister, the officials from the department, all stakeholders present. Thank you, honorable members, for your participation in this discussion. And yeah, I want to declare the meeting officially closed. Thank you.
A round of applause for the minister.